Hey. So he told me I wouldn't be able to have the baby by myself. And the first thing that came across my mind was I thought he meant I was gonna have to have like a C-section. And I was kind of freaking out because I had just been in labor for, like 20 hours, and I didn't want to have a C-section after doing all that. And before I started like really panicking, he clarified. He was like, "We're gonna have to use the vacuum," and he said that he was too big for me to push out by myself because he keeps retracting back. So I was like, okay, and I'm thinking I could deal with the vacuum. It didn't sound too horrible. He told me they were gonna have to give me an episiotomy, and he said, or he apologized that I was, gonna have to feel it. And he said like, "Oh, you shouldn't have to feel this," but I did, So he asked one of the nurses to give me some more medicine in my IV. I'm not sure if they did or not. Um, I uh, I was kind of really out of it. At that point, I was just feeling so much pain. Uh, I think they might have, because the cut itself, I didn't feel like all of. I could kind of feel it, but it wasn't as bad as I would assume it would have felt had I not had anything in my system. So I think they gave me something. I don't know. And he was like, well, and my contractions were steady coming this whole time, and I was steady pushing. Um, a contraction would come. I put my legs back up in the stirrups and I'd push, and he looked at me and he was like, "You don't have to push if you don't want to, because it's not really going to help." I decided to go ahead and keep pushing with each contraction because it did help the pain, especially since that was pretty much the only pain relief I had. So I kept pushing anyways, even though I knew it wasn't going to do anything, and I think that kind of made it harder, knowing that I was pushing for nothing, Uh, he did like a test pinch with the scissors, and I felt that. Um, and he gave me a local. Uh, and like I had said, that like pretty much worked. I would assume, because I didn't feel all that. Um, he looked up and he promised that I'd have the baby in the next contraction. So I was super thankful. I'm thinking, okay, because by this point they were coming so fast together. I was like, awesome, I'm gonna have a baby in like 30 seconds, and I pushed like super, super hard, and I felt like I was being like ripped apart. I'm not even exaggerating. It felt horrible. And I didn't have a baby. And it was still the same contraction, and I pushed again, and there was still no baby. And then I heard them say that they were going to have to use the forceps. And I didn't really realize, like, I knew what that was, and I knew, how it worked and stuff, but at that point I didn't even care. I was just like, get this baby out of me, Uh, and it hurt a ton when they put the forceps around the baby's head. And I started to push my third. I had to wait a contraction because, but him putting the forceps around the head, that one contraction had ended, so I had to wait to my next contraction. And I started to push. He had it around, and I remember them telling me that I felt this like crazy pressure and pain, and it was just kind of insane. And then they told me that the head was out, and I was like, oh, awesome, That's all I needed to hear, because everyone was like, oh, the head's the worst part. And then with my next push, they pulled again, and the rest of the baby came out, and that's when I ripped. I think I might have ripped like a little bit with the head, but I ripped the rest of the way with the body, and well, felt that was so bad. It was just lots of pressure and uh, like a really intense pain, and then uh, once he was out, it was odd. Like, I still really hurt, but I could just, it was a sort of a different kind of hurt. I just felt like someone had really just like rammed me over with a bus, you know? But I could definitely tell when he came out. I didn't see it, but I could just tell it felt different. Um, and then he started crying like immediately. Like the second I felt him come out, it was just like he was screaming. So I was happy for that, you know, because that meant he was okay. Kind of got a little hazy after that. Um, I I had my legs up in the stirrups, and I had and of course there was like kind of like that protected sheet sort of thing they put so the blood doesn't splatter everything, you know. And I couldn't like see it completely, but I remembered like trying to like sit up a little bit, and he was holding the baby, and my mom cut the cord and took like 2 cuts. Uh, and I saw that, and they wrapped him in one of like the blue, I forgot what they're called. They're kind of like giant blue square pads that like suck up the blood and stuff. They had some on the floor, they had some around me, and they wrapped him in that, and they put him on my chest, like really up high, you know, and I got to look down at him, and sorry, I'm umming a lot. I'm going between my memory and what I have written, so I held him for just like a minute or two, and then they took him away to the baby warmer station that they had in the room. And I looked at my doctor, and I remember wondering why he was like still down there, because I'm thinking, hey, had the baby, you know. And I it was funny because I know that even if just with the episiotomy I had to get stitched back up, you know, and I knew that kind of thing, but it just didn't click. So I'm thinking like, why are you still down there? And then he started pulling on something, and he was like, this is gonna kind of hurt, and then his hand was on my stomach, and he was like pushing and pulling, and I was like, what is this? And so he pulled out the placenta. I did not see that like at all. I saw the cord that he was tugging on, but I didn't see the placenta. My mom saw it, and she said it looked to her that it was like almost as big as the baby, like about the same size as the baby. And he pushed that all out himself, so I didn't have to push it out. I just laid there, and he pushed my stomach. It hurt, but I have a feeling it would have hurt a lot more if I would have pushed it out with my own muscles, you know. And then after that was out, he still was like pushing on my stomach, and I asked him like why he was doing that, and he said he was getting rid of all the blood clots. That way I didn't have to pass them later. And getting rid of like as much of the excess blood that he could at the time, so I wouldn't be bleeding like super heavily after baby. I mean, you know, not any worse than I am, you know. And I heard like somewhere like in all that, I remember the doctor looked up at me and asked me to guess, or no, the nurse asked if I wanted to guess the birth weight, and I don't remember what I said. I said like 8 pounds 2 ounces or something like that, 8 pounds and a couple ounces. And the doctor looked up at me, and he was like, he's 9 pounds easy. And I was like, really? Oh my gosh, you know, because even then, like, I was so shocked I didn't realize I had just had like a really big baby. And then I heard him announce his weight, and it was 8 pounds 14 ounces. And then they said the time, which was like 5:13. They didn't tell me like the head circumference or anything then. I didn't find that out until later when I saw my little crib card. So yeah, so he was born 21 hours after my induction began. So anyways, that is the kind of end of the whole delivery, and then I'll do one more part with like the next little chunk of what happened like directly afterwards.